Well, we are just days away from the Oscar nominations, and if you're having trouble filling out your predictions for the short film categories, documentary, foreign film, and animated, well, we're here to help you out. I am Gold Derby contributor Zach Laws. Joining me now are Riley Chow and Charlie Bright. Why don't we just go ahead and knock foreign film out? I think there's a clear frontrunner here, but I'm really interested to see what you guys think are going to be the other four films that will lose to Roma. Riley, let's start off with you. What have you got in there?
Yeah, so I've got Capernaum, Shoplifters, Cold War, and Birds of Passage. I feel like Burning maybe has not been connecting with people lately. That's what I'm feeling. It's when I analyze its IMDb and Letterboxd ratings, it did not have a lot of full marks. It was a lot of people saying like, okay, this is a good movie, but maybe not a great one. I'm intrigued by how Stephen Young missed at the Asian Film Awards. He didn't even get a nomination. So I've got Birds of Passage, which I feel like they like to throw in maybe a more exotic nominee, to put it crassly. And also because, yeah, again, that's a film where if you look at the ratings of everyday people, it seems like a substantial portion of them will give it full marks. And that's the same thing with Capernaum and Roma. And also a lot less so with Cold War, which even missed at the Golden Globes. But I'm predicting it for one or two other nominations, so I just can't, with the logic of not having it here.
Charlie, what do you think?
The weird thing about this category is that a lot of times you think there are like three or four films that are locks, and then there's like one space that you just can't figure out what to do with. What's interesting about the 9 that were shortlisted is that there seems to be like 5 right off the bat that you would go, yeah, those are going to get nominated. And it seems deceptively easy. And I almost feel like it's like when you're taking a test and you're trying to choose an answer and you think that the teacher's trying to trick you with a question. So I have Roma, Shoplifters, Burning, Cold War, and Capernaum. Because it seems like that should probably be the easy 5, but for some reason I think I was looking at like what was least likely to get nominated, and I think one of them was Aika, the one from Kazakhstan, and part of me is thinking because we think it's the least likely to be nominated, that's just going to get in there.
That's the one you should put in, yeah.
She won Best Actress at Cannes, right?
No. For which film?
Was that Aika or is that something else?
It might have been actually. Yeah, I think it was.
Let me look that up real quick so I can.
I remember writing about the festival this year, and yeah, I believe she was the Best Actress winner.
Well, I can tell you she wasn't because. Oh wait, yes, she was. Yeah.
It
was slow to load.
Like Charlie, you mentioned how it seems like the front runners are obvious. Last year we had the Critics' Choice and Golden Globe winner In the Fade was not nominated, was not liked by critics, so it was weird that it got so far. But
did it get on the short list?
Crowd pleaser. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it did get on the short list. Okay.
So yeah,
I was thinking about that earlier. I couldn't remember.
Well, I'll tell you. So I have. I've got Roma, obviously. I've got Cold War, Shoplifters. I have Never Look Away, the German entry from former winner in this category, Florian Hinkel von Donnersmarck, the guy who made Lives of Others. It's the longest film in this category, but I feel like prestige alone and subject matter as well can help put it over the edge. And I do have Burning in there. I don't have Capernaum. It might just be a personal bias of my own. I feel like, I've heard a lot of, for all the praise that movie's gotten, it's also got its fair share of detractors. It has some pretty mixed reviews, overall. I think that a lot of people obviously respond to the subject material of it, but, I think for others, it might be a little too heavy-handed in some of its directorial choices. So I don't know if that one's going to miss. Like we've said, this category can be ripe for surprises. Like, we haven't mentioned The Guilty at all, but that's a film that could very easily show up in place of one of these others. Um, does anyone think? I mean, I guess Roma is just so far and away. Do you think that maybe it could hurt some of these films that we think are sure bets, like Shoplifters or Cold War? Like since maybe they might be throwing support to lesser known films since there is such a clear front runner.
I definitely think so. I mean, we've seen that happen quite often, especially in this category. I think infamously a couple of years ago, I can't remember the director's name, but the director of Force Majeure was actually filming himself and his producer, I believe it was, watching the Oscar nominations come in and believing that, because a lot of us thought that Force Majeure was a surefire bet to get nominated, and you actually see them just in disbelief when it didn't get nominated. So, that's just an example of one of those types of, you think it's really safe, and then out of nowhere, it just doesn't get in.
Yeah. I mean, I remember from a few years ago, too, like Amore was far and away the front runner, but there was also a crowd-pleasing film called The Untouchables, which has just been remade as a Kevin Hart, Bryan Cranston vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed like a sure bet, like number 2 to get in, and it was completely skunked. So, I mean, there's just example after example after example that we can point to.
Yeah, and that reminds me, with the Untouchables, it's also a decision that these countries have to make, whether they'll submit a crowd pleaser or they'll go with the Holy Motors, which is, more of a critically acclaimed film. Because sometimes it works out one way, sometimes it works out the other way. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. Well, I guess we can move over to animated film, which I think is a little bit more. I mean, it looks like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the front runner, but at the same time, is superhero bias going to work against that film? What do you guys think?
No, I think it'll win just because it seems like there's such overwhelming love for it. I'm not so sure that it'll win at the Annies because they like to do a lot of weird things. I'll say the top 4 in this category, I think, are very set. It's that 5th slot that we need to worry about. I've got Mirai, which I think is the popular choice at this point. But what's concerned me about Mirai this whole season is that I consider myself responsible for its position in the prediction center because I saw it at the Vancouver Film Festival, and then I was writing an article and I sent it over to Daniel, and then he couldn't edit it, so he sent it to all the other editors. And then at that time, Chris launched the prediction center, and since it was something that they had all heard of, then they all put it in their 5th slot, and I think that carried it along. But it did get the Golden Globe nomination, so I think there's a legitimacy to it. I was just surprised that it didn't win the Los Angeles Film Critics Award because they always go for the Japanese or foreign option, but even they went behind Spider-Man.
Charlie, what do you think? I mean, I should say when you say the top 4 set, that also includes Isle of Dogs, Incredibles 2, and Ralph Breaks the Internet. Charlie, do you think that those 4 are all safe?
I kind of think so. Actually, remind me again, is Mirai Studio Ghibli?
I believe so,
It's G-Kids.
G-Kid. Yeah.
Oh, it's G-Kids. Okay. Because I was going to say, they do usually like to put like a Studio Ghibli film in there if it's eligible. I do think that those are probably I actually think there are 3 solids, and I think that's Spider-Man, Isle of Dogs, and Incredibles 2. I would be wary. I mean, Mirai is possible; it could be on shaky ground. I would be worried about Ralph Breaks the Internet. It just seems like I remember a lot of us thought that that the first one would buck the trend. But it seems like it didn't. And yeah, it should have. we all know that. But I think that it just seems like that of the sequels that might be on shakier ground. Just in terms of the reception seems like it was a bit more lukewarm. But I really think that Spider-Man is far and away the favorite at this point. I didn't think it was going to win the Golden Globe. but when it did win the Golden Globe, to me that was like the solidifying moment of it as the front runner.
I mean, I guess, we should mention that, you say Ralph Breaks the Internet is on shaky ground. I think it's because, Toy Story aside, they don't tend to go for sequels in this category. I mean, even Pixar ones like Finding Dory or Monsters University, like they've kind of struggled to get follow-ups into this category. So, the idea that they're going to have two in the same year does seem a little far out there. But then, like, what replaces it? Early Man or The Grinch?
Yeah, it's what's interesting about this category is that they changed up the voting last year, whereas in previous years it was just limited to, I think, the animation branch, and now it's kind of whoever wants to come in and watch the movies, they can vote, which is good because there's still accountability, but it just means that there's going to be more mainstream populist tastes. So, I mean, before last year, I would think that I'd be worried about Incredibles 2 and Ralph Breaks the Internet because they're seen as inferior sequels. And I think that Mirai definitely would be in that case. But since we moved to this new system, where I thought last year The Boss Baby would get in for sure, and it did because it made so much money, and then Ferdinand came in at the last minute, then I'm wondering if The Grinch can show up since it's been doing well at the guilds, or if Early Man can show up because the Annies put their support behind it. But usually the Globes go for these American late-breaking films, and they didn't this year, so I'm sticking with Mirai.
Let's move on to documentary. And like foreign language film, I think there's a clear frontrunner here. And the documentary branch is notorious for leaving off frontrunners like they did last year with Jane. Won't You Be My Neighbor? Do you guys think that is solidly in there? What do you think, Riley?
Yeah, I think so. And it's not just Jane last year. It's also City of Ghosts, which did so well at the guilds. And, he had been up previously, Matthew Heineman. So I've got Won't You Be My Neighbor and Free Solo. I think those two are solidly out front, as much as they can be in a race that regularly snubs its frontrunners. And I've got Mind of the Gap, which I think most people do. And I have Three Identical Strangers, which, again, I think most people do. But I'm less sure about that one. Just because, again, using my very scientific method of looking at IMDb and Letterboxd, seeing where the grade distribution is, that one and RBG, it seems like people like them a lot more than they actually love them. I've got Shirkers in there, largely because it's Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie, like we said, this category is notorious for snubbing the front runner. I'm worried about RBG. Like, they don't usually go for profile documentaries. I know a lot of people like it, and I know a lot of people feel a certain affinity for Ruth Bader Ginsburg right now, but I don't know if that's enough to, put it into the category. I also have Shirkers because of the Netflix factor and because they've run a really brilliant campaign with it here at the last minute. Charlie, what do you think?
I actually have the same five as Riley. I was actually interesting. A couple of months ago, I was talking with a member of the documentary branch, and he told me that we were talking about some of the documentaries that had been out. This was about the summer, and Won't You Be My Neighbor had really struck gold in terms of documentaries, box office. And he was saying that the real hurdle for that movie is the nomination, because if it gets in there, because he told me if it gets in there, it's going to win, because it's so much more populous now that the voting has expanded for the winners phase. So I could see it missing in some weird way, because it's this category, and this category, as we've said, this category always seems to do that type of thing. So I think it's in there. I think I have Three Identical Strangers number 2. I haven't looked at like a lot of the IMDb stuff, but from listening to people in their various reviews about it, there's really a passion for that film, I found, and at least from what I've been listening to, and and
That's
it's
what I
also a
thought
bit of a personal.
anecdotally too, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just like, I mean, I also I love that film so much, and I think that like if I was an Oscar voter, I would be putting that number one. But that's just me. And then I have Minding the Gap, Shirkers, and Free Solo. I think Shirkers has another added bonus to it, in not just that it's Netflix and Netflix has been campaigning the hell out of it, and they've been doing a really good job with it. Is that also it's a movie about filmmaking, and
Yeah.
the documentary branch does like to nominate stuff that reminisces about that about the art of filmmaking, or the art of, or how movies are made. And this one's just a doozy of a story.
Yeah, not only is it about filmmaking, but it's also about how women are treated when they try to become filmmakers. It's about a woman having to overcome a a really egotistical and hurtful man, who threatens to destroy her career. So I think that has some special resonance today. Um, yeah, I mean, I do wonder about Minding the Gap as well, as acclaimed as that is. I mean, I wonder if it might be a little too uncomfortable, for a lot of voters. Um, Won't You Be My Neighbor? I think the reason why it is so far out front is just the emotional response that people have from it. Like the feeling that they get after they watch it, and so that might be the saving grace for it to get the nomination. The thing that it has over other profile documentaries like an RBG is that it does seem to really resonate very deeply with people today.
I do think that actually, with RBG, I would keep my eye out for it, because I actually think Oscar voting has been going on this past week, and I think that I think that with Ruth Bader Ginsburg being in the news as much as she has, I think that that only just helps raise awareness for the movie. So I think that's if the Hollywood liberal crowd is flipping through their New York Times, Washington Post, or New Sodom Gazette, or whatever they read, I think that they'll be looking at that, and they'll be seeing those stories. And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I really like that documentary about her."
I just
Yeah.
caught that joke you said.
I think RBG is on everybody's ballot. I think it's ranked fourth every single time, though. So I think, like, I can't tell if the field is divided enough that that'll be enough. I'm thinking right now that it's not, but maybe if Hale County or The Silence of Others are big players, and there are a lot of important films here, then I think it could get in. Or maybe it's just as simple as it's RPG and everybody loves her now, so obviously it's getting in.
Yeah. Let's go through the shorts, starting with animated. Usually you have to look out sometimes for what the front runners are in this category, according to our Gold Derby odds, because very often people will just pick the first 5 on the list. And generally speaking, when the list is published, it's in alphabetical order. So be wary of that. Charlie, tell us what you're thinking for animated short.
I was thinking, so yeah, we saw this last year with the animated short In a Heartbeat, which was that animated short that went viral about the young gay kid in love with his fellow, who's attracted to his fellow student. And I thought, and I took that out of my predictions at the last minute, and good thing I did, because it ended up not getting nominated. So that's a classic case of even when you have higher profile things, even with short films, that doesn't necessarily work in their favor. Right now, I have Bow in the number 1 position, which is probably the most high profile. It played before The Incredibles 2. It's a Pixar short, and it's really adorable, and something that is beautifully, that really suits the medium of animation. So I think that's a very good one to have in your number 1 spot. It may seem like just like a generic default safe choice, but it's a good one to have there. After that, I have Bird Karma, Bilby, Late Afternoon, and Age of Sail.
Okay, why do you have Age of Sail? I want to hear that one.
I thought that the animation was just very striking, and I think and also parts of the Academy seem to be responding to the idea of virtual reality, of VR experiences. We saw Alejandro Iñárritu receive an honorary Oscar for a VR project that he did, and so I think that the idea of what the director did for this, and that it's also interesting because that the director who directed that directed the winner from a couple of years ago, Paper Man, and the animation styles are so starkly different, and I think that'll stand out.
Riley, what are you predicting?
Well, first of all, it's fun what Charlie said about how you have to watch out for what's the front runner, because last year in a Heartbeat was the front runner in this category, not nominated. Alane was the front runner for documentary short, not nominated. The one that actually won documentary short, we did not have in our nomination predictions. So you might as well just throw some darts. And yeah, you'll probably get 3 out of 5 no matter what, I think. Although I think Charlie said that he gets 5 out of 5 sometimes, so good for him.
Sometimes.
Yeah, so I've got Bao because it's the big one. I have Bilby because it's about cute animals and done pretty well actually. It's fun this year because 9.5 of the animated shorts are online in their entirety, free to the public. I say half because one of them you can watch a trailer and 3 clips from it, and these films are not that long anyway. So it's nice being able to actually see everything that we like to talk about. I noticed that there were a lot of things that popped up, in a lot of these shorts. Animals, of course, is a recurring thing, but also old men at the beach or on the sea, that also showed up a lot. There were 4 of them that were about Asians, which is unusual. There were a few that were set in Toronto. So it's interesting to watch all these. I also have Lost and Found. That one is very emotional. I've got One Small Step, which I think is actually ranked last in the prediction center. But One Small Step is about a little girl who dreams of being an astronaut. And you Americans love space, so I don't know why that's not higher in the prediction center.
Not anymore, we don't.
Nobody watched First Man. So.
All right, maybe this is the problem. And I've also got Late Afternoon, which I thought was a very sweet story about an old lady with Alzheimer's. I mean, come on, how does something like that not get in?
Well, I mean, I guess we'll find out. Excuse me. I am predicting Bao, Bilby, Lost and Found, Weekends, and I'm going with Pepe Lemorse because it's a little more traditionally animated, and I think sometimes they can respond to that.
I may have to put in Weekends. That's one that I've also been thinking about. I saw that one. That is that's definitely it definitely is an emotional one also. So I think that one might be one to keep an eye out for.
Was it missing an ending?
Was
it?
I don't know. I don't know where that story went. That's what's holding me back from putting it in. And Pepe Lemorse or Grandpa Walrus, I thought was gross, and I think is the least likely to be nominated.
Well, then I'm going to put my 500-point bet on that one.
Yeah, I've got 500 points on this category.
Let's move on to documentary. I guess rule of thumb here is if you got a Netflix or an HBO film, put that in there. So, Charlie, what are the Netflix and HBO films that we have in documentary short?
Oh, I actually I feel bad. I don't know which ones are Netflix ones. I feel so stupid now. Thanks a lot, Zach.
Absolutely. I'll go on to Netflix right now and find out.
Hold on, let me just browse through.
I do think that's the rule in this category, and it's not even true that they always get in, but it's just the safe thing to do because they're going to be well made.
Well, Charlie, tell us what you're predicting.
So I am pretty confident in either in my top 2 kind of being interchangeable. I have Zion and Black Sheep. Those seem to be reflective of subject materials that just traditionally do well in the documentary short category. In third, I have period, end of sentence, which has a lot of echoes of films of past winners like A Girl in the River and Saving Face. Then I also have Los Commandos. And I recently took out, I had 63 Boycott in there, but I took that out in favor of My Dead Dad's Porno Tapes.
Oh man.
I just think that title, even if they haven't seen it, that title is going to be too irresistible. Just like what happened to this category last year with Heaven is a Traffic Jam on the 405.
Yeah. I like that. I like that prediction. Riley,
it's an interesting documentary. It's one of the free ones you can see. It's actually on the New York Times website.
Oh, Riley, what do you think?
Yeah, watching them really does help because last year, there are a bunch that are on the New York Times website, and they're just too short and they're insubstantial, and then I don't know, it's just at odds with the prediction center. I have not done research on this category yet. I have not watched any of them, which I plan to do, so I have not logged predictions.
All right, well, I'll tell you mine then. I'm going with I've got Black Sheep, Zion, Women of the Gulag, period, end of sentence, and Charlie convinced me to put in My Dead Dad's Porno Tapes.
What are you taking out?
Oh, I took out give me a second here. So I took out Endgame, which is ranked in third in our prediction center, so maybe I'm crazy.
It kind of has echoes of what was that one, Body Team 12 from a couple years ago?
Yeah,
which everyone in the prediction center was like saying was going to win, and I'm like, if you've watched it, you know it's not going to win.
Oh my God, yeah, and it's all just about it's all about like medical professionals. What was that movie?
Heroin?
That one Netflix documentary from a couple years ago that was all about like people working in the hospice ward of a hospital.
Extremists?
Yeah, which was number one in our odds, and I watched it. I said, absolutely not. There's
it's the exact same thing.
This movie's going to win.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's just so obvious when you actually watch them.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought last year with Heroin. I was like, when I watched the nominees, I was watching Heroin, and I was like, that's a winner. That's a winner. Boy, how wrong I was. But I would also say, there are some of these that just by looking at them, it's hard to see a path to a nomination for them. Like A Night at the Garden, which is it's basically archival footage from a Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden back in 1939. Mm-hmm. And it sounds interesting, but it's just something that I think just using archival footage is just not going to be enough for that to get in. It's not going to have enough of context.
Well, and it's like 7 minutes long, and also, I mean, not for nothing, I think that's kind of what hurt Jane, last year, was that it was comprised of archival footage, and good as it was, they might just ding you for that.
And Los Commandos just also seems like, especially right now with everything that's going on with immigration and the idea of these caravans that are coming up, and that's an insight into what these people are fleeing right now. So I think that's it also has a timely element that could definitely possibly not only help it get nominated, but could put it in serious contention for a win.
That's a good point. I think I'm going to put that in there just based off of that. Although we don't know how many Trump voters we have in the Academy. Let's
it could win them over. You don't know.
Yeah, of course. Let's go to live action short and put a bow on this. Riley, have you researched this category yet?
I have, yes. 3 of them are online, available to the public. 2 of them we were able to get with our Gold Derby connections, and the other 5 I just had to watch the trailer and read about them. So the ones that I did watch, it was kind of a pass-fail. I agree, actually, with the first place in Gold Derby's Prediction Center. So good job, us. That one's Caroline. I imagine it's actually the shortest of the 10, but it really packs a punch. I cried. It's very simple. It's shot almost entirely in a parked car, but it's a simple premise. I think very relatable. It's just about a poor single mother who leaves her kids in the car while she goes for a job interview across the street. So, sadness ensues. So I have that one first. I also agree with the second place in Golder's Prediction Center, which is Marguerite, which is about an old lady who strikes up an unlikely friendship with a much younger woman. That one, I think, on IMDb, it lists how many nominations, how many wins it's received. That one has only received wins, so it's very popular if you watch it, apparently. There are a couple in this category that I wasn't sure how to feel about, and those ones are Detainment and Skin, which are the next two in the Prediction Center in our odds, because those ones, they tackle important subject matter, but they just made me feel gross because they're about violent racists and kids killing kids and the real consequences of that. Detainment is not online in its entirety, but it seems to be very well liked by people who have seen it, so I put that one in. Next, I've got Chuchatage. I don't know if that's how you say it, but that is the only one that can be remotely described as a madcap comedy. And I feel like there's always one of those in the short list, and it pretty much always gets in, just because it's the apple in the bag of oranges. Then I've got Wale, which is apparently a thriller. It seemed kind of fun.
Yeah. So I actually don't have Caroline in there because from reading the description, it seems too simple. So that's actually going to be one that I'm going to have to check out, and I might actually have to adjust my predictions accordingly. But I saw I have a Skin as my number one. Then I have Wale, which just from reading the description of it, actually seems very, very enticing and interesting, and just from the description alone. So that's why I have it as high as it is. Then I have, I guess it's pronounced Ikare, about the inventor on a small island who is using a child as a test subject for a new invention. They like stuff with children, like we saw with helium a couple of years ago, which won. Usually it's dying children, but I guess they can make an exception for this one. Then I have Marguerite and Chechtage as well, because just like Riley took the words right out of my mouth, they usually find room for one thing that's explicitly a comedy. Like they might also have like a film that's darkly a comedy, but they usually try to have one that's just explicitly a comedy.
I have Caroline, Marguerite, Skin, Wale, and Chuchatage. I took Detainment out, even though it's ranked in third, because we should say this is based in part on the James Bulger true story.
Not Whitey Bulger. This is a different James Bulger.
This is a very unpleasant true crime case, and as a true crime fanatic, this should be right up my alley. And it just sort of is, if it made my skin crawl, I can't imagine what it does for actual Oscar voters.
It made my screen crawl just reading the description about it.
Yeah, and so I just have it is a long movie. It's a long short. It's about a half hour long, so maybe it's pure length will give it a sense of gravitas that the other films don't. But I can just see a lot of Academy voters turning that off midway through.
I would also keep my eye out for I guess it's pronounced Falvey or Falvey. It's another one that has the subject matter of children. It's about two boys who are in a sulfur mine, and they are engaging in a game of one-upping each other. And then it gets to a certain level, and then it gets to it escalates to a level that they never thought it actually would escalate to. That seems like it could be very much in what the Academy would usually go for. So I would keep my eye out for that as well.
Yeah, my problem with Ikar and Fauve, or however you say them, is that they were just so long, and I found them kind of boring. Whereas Caroline is only half a movie, but I was enthralled for that half a movie. I appreciated how this Icarus adaptation was not using Icarus as a metaphor, but it really is just about an inventor trying to get his kids to fly.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe it could benefit from that documentary that one last year that was all about the Russians. So, might seem timely to some people who don't actually watch the movie. Um,
I like how Mother is last in our prediction center, and how Chris couldn't even find a picture of it, because that one was the hardest one to track down since it's called Mother, and it's not the only short film that's been called Mother, not even the only Spanish one. There was one a couple years ago at Cannes. So, but yeah, that one I would actually put in sixth place. The one I think definitely will not get in is Mayday. I thought that one was boring and not funny, and yeah, no good.
I'll watch for it to win now. So,
And sorry, and the last thing I'll say is that Skin has a lot of star power. It's got Jonathan Tucker and this guy Ashley Thomas, who I've seen in 24 and The Night Of, and it's also got young Randall from This Is Us. It's also got drone shots, so yeah, you never know if star power and high production values will carry something, or you guys, I think, have it in there anyway. So.
right. Well, to the people who were watching this, I hope that we helped you out in those truly tough to call Oscar races. I know that I have switched some of my predictions after listening to these two fine experts. Follow us for more Oscar news on goldderby.com. I'm Zach Laws. Charlie, Riley, thank you so much.